Alright, so I have not done any footage lately. I've been pretty busy with things around here. I got a battery that's bad in this thing. Yeah, it's only the second one I've put in since... I think that's the first one I put in since 2011. But anyways, I figured I'd talk about my incredibly crazy bolts that I've been dealing with. These are metric bolts. Give me a second here. I'm going to put my stand on this camera. Now, I'm pretty much come to the conclusion that the bolts that we get here in the United States are a mishmash of bolts that come from what people call it Chinesium. I honestly don't believe it's Chinesium. What I think it is that bolt manufacturers here, there are hardly any bolt manufacturers in the United States anymore. But these companies have become so accustomed to producing bolts, or not even producing bolts, buying bolts instead of producing their own bolts. This is a Krone Baler. All right, I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to show you. I'll show you. This is the Krone Baler. This is the bolts that came out of the Krone box. You're probably wondering why I'm even talking about this. I'm talking about this because, there's a lot of folks that think that I'm fucking crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I quite honestly find that to be rather offensive, that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I don't understand the metric system. The fact and the reality is I understand it just fine. Oh, here, I'm taking that out of, this is a Krone bag. That's what that is. That's the barcode. Krone, K-N-A. And it's coming out of my box. Here's the bolts, same thing. These are an M10, right? M10, I'm gonna take it out of there, out of the bag. Came out of this Krone box here with other official Krone bits and pieces. There's more Krone bolts in there. These are M14s, I think. What is that? These are M12s? 10 by 50s. Yeah, those are M10 by 50s, right? Yeah, those are 10 by 50s. These are by, what are these? M10 by, it doesn't even say on this one. Yeah, it doesn't even say oh, wait, those are just the bolts. Sorry about that. These are M10 by 40. So M10 by 40. These are 10 millimeters shorter. And there you go. It is a Krone box that came out of. So just to prove that it isn't some shit Chinesium, or that it's not something that you would think would be made in China. Now I'm going to walk away from the camera for a second. I'm going to go over and I'm going to get the wrenches, because I know that I got to go to my metric wrench gizmo place here. And I'm going to tell you that I may or may not have what I need here, because perfect. So a lot of you Europeaners or European Unions or UK guys are like, oh, well, if that's an M10, it should take a 16 millimeter or 17 millimeter wrench. Well, you're right on both sides. Here's the 16. Now this just came out of a brand new box. That's a 16. It fits, right? Nice snug fit. Gonna go to the nut size. No good. I'll do that again just so you see it. Right? So you're going to tell me to look at this and that. You can tell me that this is this. You can tell the difference by looking at this. That there's a difference. You can tell the difference looking at those two side by side. You can tell, because I think if you can, you're full of shit. Here we go. I'm going to put it on here again. I'm going to demonstrate. It's 17. It's nice and tight, snug. Here, clickety clackety, nice here, perfect. 16 won't fit, right? So this is a 16 and a 17 millimeter on the same bolt. This is a grade 8.8, which is probably a US standard grade 5 bolt. So I'll take you up here. I'll take you up to the top. Now, there's a reason I'm doing this, is because I'm actually working on this machine right now. I had a little bit of a faux pas yesterday. Ooh, why are you not doing what I want you to do? A little bit of a faux pas yesterday, and I'll tell you what it was as I get through it. So right down here is the knotter system. And on these knotter systems, there's these things called tucker fingers. If you're unfamiliar with balers, if you're just a grain farmer and you've never touched them, a baler, then you would know. So these are the tucker fingers. You see that thing is kind of peeking up behind there? Well, that tucker finger, when the needle comes up through, it has one string on it, and then it catches the upper string. I'm going to show you that now. Let me quit flipping around here. So this string here, you see this string here, it goes down, and you see the rollers where it goes through. You'll see that there's a back roller and a front roller. Now this string feeds the top, but when that needle comes up, the needle has an open face on it, and it grabs that string. Just catches it, just catches that string, pulls it up through the center here, and these tucker fingers are out of the way, right? So when the needle comes all the way up, them tucker fingers will actually come behind the string that the needle has forced up through there, and it'll force that string into the twine discs and the bill hook. Right, so it pulls it away from the needle, and the needle really forces it into here, and those tucker fingers hold it against the bill hook. Now this wiper arm is actually across at that time, so the twine is here where my finger is. So when that comes up, the arm goes around, the needle comes up, the arm goes across, the tucker fingers squeeze that up against the bill hook. The bill hook is then open at that time, and it turns and catches that twine, and then the knife arm comes across, or the wiper arm comes across, cutting the string, and this is all done in the blink of an eye. Okay, so it's quite an interesting thing. So anyway, with that being said, I had a stick or something, because we have all these ash trees that are dying due to the emerald ash borer. They die, and then the branches fall off the trees. They end up in the field, and you can't see them. You know, the rakers maybe don't see them, or the mower will skip over the top of them, because they're usually just 4 to 6 inches around. And you know, when you're mowing and the grass is laying over top of it, then it hides it, and then the mower will skip over the top of it, because they do. And then you just don't even see it, and then a raker will rake it up, and then boom, it goes up into the baler. So what happened yesterday, I'm going to flip you around again. What happened yesterday is something caught this thing right here, right? I'm going to blow, and I'm blowing for a reason. You can see right there, you see that blue, like blue ink? Well, that's a marker. And that marks it's on each one of them, right there. And that will mark that this thing here hasn't moved, okay? Well, it had slid all the way forward, which holds the tucker arm. It had slid that thing 2-3 inches that way. So what it did then was, I think the needle actually caught that one. You can see on the back side of it, I can anyway, you can see on the back side of it that it had something scrape across the top of it. And what that did was it sent all the other tucker fingers past center and locked them. 1, 2, 3, 4. That one on the end didn't do it. But these 4 were locked hard over in the engaged position. And it would cycle, the needles would cycle, but it wouldn't tie anything, because it wouldn't tie anything, because nothing was working properly. The bill hook wouldn't even grab the twine, because the tucker fingers were jammed hard over. So, you know, big deal, not really a big deal at all. It was just figuring out what the problem was. And it took me about 5 minutes of looking at it. And I've looked at these things for a long time. Most people see this view here, and it's like looking at a nuclear reactor. Most farmers look at that thing and are like, fuck that, I ain't going anywhere near that thing. Well, just think of it as a dirty sewing machine. That's all it is. And there's 6 of them. So, but I've been dealing with these things for over 20 years. Well, actually my whole entire life. But the big square baler seen over 20 years. So it was pretty easy for me to spot what the problem was and remedy it. And then it was to get the tucker fingers to go back to their regular position, which was not easy either. But I did it, and it got done, and that's life. But when I was putting the bolt back on, this little guy right here, oh, and that's another problem, right? So what happens is these bolts are a little too long, and I should flip that around the other way. But anyways, I couldn't get the nut on there, so I kind of half-ass jammed it on. Actually, whole-ass jammed it on. I mean, I jammed that sucker on there. And let me tilt you down a little bit. Maybe you can see what I'm going to do. So obviously it takes 2 wrenches to do this. So, and they're 2 wrong size wrenches. Or maybe one's the right size. I don't fucking know. But anyways, I cross-threaded the darn thing. And it just to get it done. And it's not like a New Holland. A New Holland just has a pin with a clip on through it. And that is the right one, correct? Yes. And these are the ones that were bought for this. I'm actually going to flip it around like that. I don't think it's going to interfere with anything. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to interfere. Doesn't mean that it won't interfere. It just means that I don't think it will. I mean, there's nothing there that it can catch. So, anyway, that's what I'm doing, is just turning these around because I can. It doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to get in the way. It won't hit a needle. It won't hit anything. I don't know why I've got them turned that way anyway. It's kind of dumb. I mean, if I turned it the way I'm doing this one, and it won't even get in contact with the hay dog or the bale dog, which what they call these things. I'll show you. They got little rubber stoppers on the ends. And this baler has 42,000 bales on it now. But, so these are the baler dogs, right here. And as the slice comes up, the plunger pushes it past these, and then they jump up past the hay and then drop back down. At least they're supposed to. And then that keeps it from screwing up the knotter. That thing there is in the wrong position. You can see it's in the up position because it's been catching those. And I should probably just turn them all around. I should actually replace them all and turn them around. But the baler seems to be working fine other than that. But you guys, if you're telling me that I don't understand the metric system, you really need to rethink your lives. What they do across the pond on another continent, whether it's Australia, Africa, Europe, Asia, wherever the hell it is. It's one thing I learned a long ass time ago. People are different no matter where they are. They're different, but we're the same. So I like the American standard bolt systems because it's what I grew up with. The metric system to me is not complicated. It's actually oversimplified. But in my opinion and experience, more experience over opinion, but in my experience, these fasteners, they absolutely suck. They suck because they don't stay tight. And if they would stay tight, they have nylocks, right? This is a nylock. which I'm pretty sure somebody had told me that, oh, if you're running nylox, it's going to be a different size, which is true, you know, and it is the same in the standard, US standard bolt sizes as well, that if it is a nylock, it is of a different size. In the 7/16, that anomaly that we have, the 7/16 anomaly, is it the 7/16? It's actually the same size. It's a 5/8 instead of that 11/16 nut. So it's different. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed my calmer explanation of the struggles we have with the metric system here. I don't really care what you think, to be honest with you. I know what the struggles are here, and if you look in the comments, you'll see that 90% of the people that agreed with me are farmers from the United States that have had the very same problems that we've had. Stock and Loctite is a must. When you're dealing with metric here in the United States. They just don't stay tight. It's very easy to over torque them and snap them off. It's just a known fact here that that's what happens. We do it kind of consistently. I've gotten to the point now that I just do, I don't really have any critical bolts that, you know, like engine bolts that, and to be honest with you, if I had an engine like my stepson, he had a Subaru BRZ, and we rebuilt the engine in here. And I wish I hadn't done it, because we fired it up, and the first thing you want to do with one of these engines, especially if you know that it's a kid, it's, you know, start it up, warm it up, and then pretty much redline it. And once it's warmed up and everything's seated, you redline that thing, that'll seat the bearings, stretch the rods to where they belong. You know, the worst thing you can do, and the car manufacturers will tell you that you have to do this, just keep it under 55 miles. Years ago it was, oh, don't go over the speed limit for 500 miles, you know, and then after that. Well, what's the first thing that Suzuki does when they build a new engine and put an engine in a motorcycle, or build a new motorcycle? They pull it off the line and they redline it, they rev it, they redline that thing to seat everything into place. And I do believe Honda, all of them do it. The first thing that happens to a car that has like 60,000 miles on it, and it was only driven by a little old lady that went to church and then the grocery store twice a week. Yeah, what's the first thing that happens? It's a beautiful car, looked like it was garage kept, looked like Granny went out there every weekend and waxed it, polished it and everything, but she never went over 45 miles per hour. And then you get a car like that for a kid, because you want your son or daughter to have a nice car, when they're a good cheap car, one that you're not going to be too butthurt over, but the nicer you can get it for usually they're 10, 12 years old and they look like they're cherry cars. And the first thing they start to do is burn oil, smoke a little bit. Well, what has happened is that she never revved the engine over 1,200 RPMs, and the damn thing at RPM, revolutions per minute, or rotations per minute, depending on where you're at. The Granny never revved it up enough to actually seat the bearings, or she drove it, and the grooves in the, in the cylinder liners, or the cylinders, that have a little lip on them, and then your 17-year-old that now wants to see how fast they can make a 1985 Toyota Corolla go, that never went over 45 miles an hour, but they redline it at 6,000 RPMs, and all of a sudden it starts burning oil. Well, it's doing that because the rings have now slammed into that little lip that is there, because the rod's never stretched and the bearings never seated, and now there's room there for this thing to smack in, and you've actually damaged the rings, or screw, damaged your rings, and there's more blow by and your mileage per gallon, whatever. It's a whole thing. So anyways, if you're going to be putting an engine together, I tore that BRZ engine apart over there, which is a Subaru Toyota. It's a Subaru engine stuffed into a Scion Toyota. So Scion, Toyota, and Subaru, which are all owned by the Toyota company, they produced a car that would take 3 different engines. Well, this one just so happened to have the Super Jew engine in it. And when I took it apart, there was blue Loctite on every single one of the fasteners in there. So even the engineers at Super Jew knew that they needed to have a torque spec that wasn't too high, but they had that little spray on. You've seen them. I've probably got a dozen of them or so laying around here, but they're a bolt that already has pre-applied strip of blue Loctite on them. Every damn one of the fasteners that I took out of there had that blue Loctite on. So I added blue Loctite to it when we put it back together again, because I wasn't going to buy a whole new fastener kit to reinstall this engine. We put the engine together, started right up, sounded good and everything, but there was one thing that was absolutely stupid on those engines, and that is the pickup tube for the oil pump. It was about an inch across, like an inch across. We're talking, what, 20 millimeters is an inch, I think. It's an inch across. So, not quite. Maybe it's 8, 3/4 is 19, 21 millimeter, I imagine, would be about as close to an inch you could get. So, and it had a very fine screen. Well, when we took the engine apart, Subaru uses sealant like they use RTV sealant all over that thing, because it's a modular engine and everything bolts onto this little square block which has your pistons and stuff in it, but your heads have to go on there. And then around the corners it's got this fucked up oil pan that has to be sealed that way. It doesn't seal with a seal, it seals with RTV cement. And what had happened was, maybe we weren't clean enough when we took this thing all apart. I thought we were, but little specks of RTV sealant actually within 20 miles, however many circulations of the pump, had plugged that screen up. What I should have done was actually cut that screen out, and then the oil filter would have picked up all that RTV cement, which would have been fine, RTV glue, and then the engine would have been fine. So 20, 25 miles later, this fucker seizes up, and that's the end of it. It was done, spent. Very disheartening deal, but my experience with these bolts in this thing were that they needed Loctite right from the factory to make them hold together. Whereas if you got it like a 1955 Chevy 350, or a 65 Chevy 350, or a 75 Chevy 350, or an 85 350, or a 95 350. And then I think when we got into the 2000s, they went to the LS, which was still a version of the 350. I'm a Ford guy, but if it was a 302 from 1965 or 68 or whatever the hell they came out with the 302, it would not have any blue Loctite on it. It would just be a machine bolt or whatever that you torque down and the threads held. I never had a problem with loosening up. So now that I've talked for 23 minutes about my metric versus standards, use what you love. Use what you have. Use what you got. Here we have to have so much more just to do the same job when it comes to metric, and that's just a fact. When it comes to the standard, it's 3/4, it's 1/2 inch, it's 3/8, 7/16. It is what it is. It takes 2 wrenches of the same size unless you're running an 11/16 inch bolt. 11/16 takes a 7/16 takes 2 different size wrenches, a 3/8 or a 5/8 and an 11/16. That's what it takes. That is the only one until you get into specialty items. There was a guy that came on here, he says, oh, well, structural steel has different sizes. That's not standard. Those are specialty items. It's structural steel. It's not a Baler. It's not a John Deere tractor. It's not an IH tractor. It's none of that stuff. It is specialty items. So metric shouldn't be a specialty item. John Deere shouldn't put a bolt that takes 3 different threads all on the same machine. 3 different threads, 3 different heads, 3 different nut sizes. It's fucked up shit. I mean, there's literally 27 different combinations that I would have to deal with just to work on this equipment. Now, maybe in Europe or wherever it is you're from that uses metric only, that doesn't even look at a standard, maybe you can possibly look, but I guarantee you that bolt that I just put up there, the difference between 16 and 17 millimeter it's literally not even a dime thickness, you know, if you know what a dime. So that's another measurement that Europeans wouldn't know, but dime thicknesses. So that is like when you say, oh, I lost a stone. Where'd you lose it? Go pick it up. Go find it, you know, if you're talking to an American. I do believe a stone is 14 pounds. I'm pretty sure it's 14 pounds. A fortnight, 2 weeks. So knowing my English friends, you know, George, Kurt, Kim, Paul, Sally, and a whole host of guys that are watching this video over there that consider them my friends. I don't know you. You think you know me, but you don't, you know what I show you. But can we be friends? We probably could, because most people that watch my channel have pretty good taste. I blocked everybody else because I can't stand people that are constant fools. And I didn't used to block, but I've taken on the blocking campaign now because I just can't stand it. I can't stand it anymore. I've been on YouTube for almost 16 years. Next month, it'll be 16 years of YouTube. That's a career for some people. To me, it was just 16 years of fun things to do. And this metric bolt thing has just, flared up that new love for YouTube and what to do to people on YouTube. But anyways, with that being said, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we're going to have, if you made it to the end, just write, metric sucks. Oh, you made it this far anyway, so it's bonus time. I'm going to do another video. I'm probably going to release this one first and then give it a little bit, but I was watching Farmer MD yesterday, and he was talking about the current administration and the one that the cities want to continue to roll with, and what it means for farming and farmers and small family farms, or basically farmers in general. It will only be a good loophole for people that are not family farms, corporate farms, and that's just the way that's going to work. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and discuss this because it really annoys the shit out of me that there are actually farmers out here that would actually cast a vote for Kamala Harris, not knowing what is coming down the pike. So anyways, have a good one, and you're gonna see a lot of "you're a liar" in the comment section. You don't know what you're talking about because you're an idiot. Well, fooey on you.